Butterflies fill my spine, I feel myself getting hot again. Nerves rushing through my brain, yeah, they can't hear fire from the trees. You're standing by his side, red drops burning down your face. You're real close now, baby. Holy fuck, I feel it with you. I lose self-control. Now I found that you're not one to hear me now. You got me on my knees begging for your lady. And like a fool to stand around and let you blame me. And I'm riding in the sky to the heavens like an
Hi, my name is Leo Connors, and welcome to The Ring and All Other Sports. Tonight, I got a very special guest, Tony Jones.
Great to be here.
Thank you very much for coming on. This is amazing. You have your hands in so many things, and we'll get to all of that. But let's get right into it. Where'd you grow up?
Rhode Island, Coventry, what they call the sticks of Coventry, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
When did you first see pro wrestling?
So, I was thinking about that because pro wrestling, I think, has been in my life as long as I can remember, because I know you're going to touch on this, but my parents were fans. So
Really?
It was kind of always playing in the background on Saturday, on Tuesday, on Wednesday, on different nights. So some of my earliest memories are actually maybe not specifically the matches themselves, but hearing pro wrestling in the background,
Right.
that noise of the commentators and things like that.
That's wild, because no one in my family liked wrestling at all. So your family, did you have
Right.
friends at school that were into it too?
Not at first, but then once I got to high school, I looped in with some guys, Blackjack Charlie for one, that I'm still friends with today, who they were into wrestling more than I was, so they kind of brought me in a little bit more at that point.
And was it like the Attitude Era at that time, or?
It was, but you had a guy a couple weeks ago named Kevin, and
Kevin Castro.
Right, he was talking about how he was a WCW kid.
Yes.
And I was like, testify, because I was a WCW kid, because the way it worked with the cable back then was that TBS was on the cheaper tier of the cable,
Right.
as opposed to USA. So I always had access to WCW, where
Wow.
the USA stuff was the next pay up. So I was WCW from the beginning, and then the Monday Night Wars, I would start at 8 o'clock with WCW, watch that the whole time, kind of occasionally switch back and forth from the Superstation
Right.
to USA, but I was WCW right until the bitter end.
Wow, there's only been a few people on this show, and Kevin is one of them, that have actually was WCW. Most people was WWE, especially if you're older like
Yeah.
I am, because there was no cable. So you could only get what was local.
And WCW finally, maybe about 4 to 6 weeks ago, launched the official WCW YouTube channel. So it's been fantastic.
That's awesome.
That content's been in the background, and back in my day, we used to
Right.
trade tapes, or we'd record. I guess I shouldn't say this because it was legal at the time, but we would record the pay-per-views
Yeah,
and then
I
pass
did
them
too.
along. Yeah. So now all that WCW stuff showing up on YouTube. So I think hopefully a younger generation is going to realize how cool that WCW era was.
Right, and the cruiserweights was incredible back then. Unbelievable. I can't believe that AEW has actually passed.
Yeah.
Isn't that
I was
crazy?
surprised to see that.
Yeah,
didn't
I
say-
figured it would be a couple more years. I
Yeah.
didn't realize that it was only that little. 83 weeks.
Yeah.
They beat the WWE. So, all right. Who are some of your favorite wrestlers right away?
So probably I'm a little bit biased on this, but for me it was anybody big. So, going back to Andre
You
the
are a
Giant.
very tall guy, so.
But then Vader, like WCW,
Yeah.
Vader, who I mentioned, I want to talk about a little something about him later on. Anybody that was big, but then could also move, because when I was wrestling, that's what I was trying to aspire to be like, and not that typical big guy who just does the forearm one thing and then he's on to the next town.
Right, Vader. I should say, I still am a huge fan of Vader. All right, when did you go to your first wrestling show?
So in Rhode Island, it was Warwick Musical Theater. Every summer, they would have a smaller show come through. So I would say maybe 96 was the first time I went. Tickets were really affordable, like $6.
Right.
And then, so Blackjack Charlie, who I talked about a little earlier, he and I actually went to the last show at Warwick Musical Theater, which was actually the last show of Warwick Musical Theater before they tear it down. Because they had such a long history with wrestling, they wanted wrestling to be the final show. And I mean, literally, the bulldozers came in like 2 days later, and that was the end of Warwick Musical Theater.
That's wild. Now, did both companies run that building by the end?
I think more, they were old school. They kind of had that territory mentality, so I think it was almost just WWF at the time.
That's awesome, though, that you remember all that stuff. That's great. When did you go to your first indie show?
Probably early 2000s, because I wanted to take a look at what was going on, because I was interested in getting in. So actually, I think I had only been to a handful of indie shows before I performed on my first indie show.
Wow.
But I did want to check it out real quick before I decided to see if I could get involved. It ran on cable access down there, and I wanted to see up close if it was kind of still the same vibe live that it was that I was seeing on cable access.
Do you remember anybody like from the show?
Unfortunately, I don't. There was a guy that had a Mountie type gimmick.
The Mountie. Robert Ray or Ray Roberts, something like that. His
yeah.
name is Ray, I know that.
And he was their
He was from
champion
Rhode
at the time.
Island,
yeah.
too.
Yeah, and he was staying busy with that, the whole Mountie thing
Right.
there, and he was their champion at the time, so I remember him being on the bill. I do remember Tiny the Terrible being on the bill, but he came through quickly.
Right.
But I don't remember, unfortunately, the full bill. I wish I did.
I hear you. Tiny the Terrible is awesome. I would love to get both those guys on this show. I really would. When did you know pro wrestling was something you wanted to do, try, or?
That would also be probably about the time that I met the guys in high school, Blackjack Charlie and those fellas. Yeah. They were, like I said, really into it. Every Monday they'd get together, watch the shows together. Again, I wanted to watch WCW, so I'd put on that first hour.
Right.
Kind of almost wrestle there over the remote to see if we were going to change the channel to USA. But once I got looped in with those guys, they were starting to explore some different indie options at that point and how they were thinking about training. So that late high school, right before I graduated, is when I really started to loop in.
Okay. What year did you graduate, if you don't mind me asking?
99.
99. Okay. I graduated in 83. I'm old, man. I'm old. All right. How did you get involved in the wrestling business? I know you said, you told me you were trained.
Yeah. So we took, Blackjack Charlie and I, we're taking our rides up to Malden, Mass, and training upstairs on that second level. And
Killer.
It was, quite the drive from Rhode Island. So then, briefly, I got to train with Kyle Storm. He opened a school in Rhode Island.
Yeah.
So I trained with him briefly, and then I also looped in with a guy named Primetime Brian Lee. So when he was up here, we would train together, just kind of seminar style. If he had extra time, he'd take me aside. We'd work together, because he's a big guy, so he knew what I needed to know. Right.
That's awesome. And Kyle's a great guy, great trainer, knows the wrestling business inside out. Him and his kayfabe brother, Matt. All right. Tell us about your first match, or the first time you managed, or even whatever, the first time that you were involved and got paid for wrestling.
It was interesting. Again, we're breaking a lot of laws here, but as I mentioned, my parents were wrestling fans.
Right.
So I was actually underage at the time, just about 17, but my father, being a wrestling fan, was willing to sign off on me being able to perform at that show. So I actually I was still just super green, could barely get in the ring. They just wanted me to do a couple different things. So I actually performed under a mask and learned the hard way that those Lucha Libre guys are working, because I'm new, I couldn't see, I couldn't breathe, I couldn't see to walk up the stairs.
The breathing's got to be so hot.
And I didn't have a specialty mask, so I'm just borrowing a mask. Now I have this big old melon, and I'm borrowing a mask, a Lucha Libre mask, which is meant for an average sized head. So I'm sucked into this thing. I can't see, I can't breathe, and nervous as all get out. But it was quite the moment for me, and it's one of the things I can definitely remember to this day.
And who did you work for? Who was
That was also NEWA. So that was,
so was that George Carroll then?
I know the Mountie was there.
It might have been the guy Rocco Della Sara before George, because George started running, I want to say, in 2002. So yeah, I think it was Rocco.
Yeah.
All right. We got a few fan questions. Like I said earlier, you have your hands in a lot of things. How long have you been doing radio?
So my next stop after wrestling school was broadcasting school, and actually, I'm not sure if people understand how spoiled they are to be able to take classes online. So what I would do was I would take in-person radio school in Pawcatuck, Connecticut,
Yeah.
and jump in my beater car at the time. Remember, I'm 18 years old, so I got
Right.
the crappiest car. You could almost see, Flintstone style. You could see through the rust at the bottom.
Yeah, I had the car like that when I first got my license.
So I would, I'd finish up broadcasting school, I'd hop in my car, drive all the way through Rhode Island,
Right.
up here to Malden, and then get my butt kicked up there. And then, I loved
Yeah.
it so much that I would do it again the next day.
Nice. All right. So what stations or station have you worked for?
So I was lucky enough to go to a high school that had an FM radio station.
Oh, awesome.
So 91.5 WCVY, that's where I started, 11th grade. Then I was locally in Rhode Island on 990 WALE. Then I was on 1320, and quickly, as I'm sure you know, AM stations started going the way of the dodo real quick. When I was in there, people were getting fired. Not fired, but stations were closing down week by week,
Wow.
So I quickly learned that I was going to have to learn a new skill set because traditional radio was going
Now,
bye-bye.
so the AM station, was that more talk radio?
They were weird because it was that weird buffer time
Yeah.
where they were trying to figure things out. Some would be music during the week, then talk on the weekends. I worked for one station that was Spanish all day and then
Wow.
American at night. So you know that song Mexican Radio?
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
literally on a Mexican radio, which is why I
Wow.
love that
I
song.
love that tune.
So it would be Spanish language all day
Yeah.
and then English at night. And then, of course, Sunday they would broker time to all different religious channels, So those guys
Wow.
would come in on the weekend. So it was an interesting time to witness broadcasting.
So that station also had their hands in a lot of different things. Wow, that's awesome. All right. Well, when you did the music, right? The music stations, was it rock? Was it pop?
Yeah, it is. I only got into pop recently.
Okay.
And in full disclosure, because that's what pays the bills.
Right.
But I've always been a rock, punk rock type person.
Yeah.
So I took the opportunity to play as much alt rock and punk rock that could still be on over-the-air radio,
Right.
which is sometimes hard to find, and sometimes it slips, and you're getting a talking to from the station manager
yeah.
because one of those bad FCC words slips through. But I try to also play as much local music as possible because
Nice.
Rhode Island has a fantastic local music scene.
Local H. It's one of my favorite
Nice.
local bands. All right. So what do you like more? Do you like radio or wrestling more?
That-
It's got to be a tough question.
Yeah, no, that is a brutal question because I love the feeling of the crowd, the live crowd for wrestling, which is not always as easy to replicate if you're in a studio by yourself behind the microphone. You are picturing the audience
Right.
that's out there. So it's on to you to kind of get those goosebumps, to get the vibe going, where at a live wrestling show, the audience is providing that. So
Right.
if not quite 50-50, maybe 60% radio,
Okay.
60% wrestling, the rest radio.
Okay, that's awesome. All right, and I got to ask, who was the first? I met a lot of indie wrestlers from what I've done, catering and selling merchandise at shows. Who were the first few indie wrestlers that you met?
Back then, it was the Mountie again. He was the
Yep.
kind of guy that took
Right.
took me aside.
Who definitely was the major pro in
Yeah.
working for the indies.
Yeah. I was involved in the WWA for a while with Brittany Brown, so she was able
Nice.
to loop me in and introduce me to some people. But some of that stuff is a haze too back
Right.
then, because we were just at that point. I was just trying to pick up establishing myself, trying to pick up as many shows and as many gigs as possible.
Nice. Brittany Brown. Brittany, if you're watching, maybe episode 400, maybe. I'd love to see it. I'd love to have you as a guest.
Which, by the way, to loop things in, so one of the stations I'm on, she just started working Saturdays
Yes.
on Funland Radio.
Yeah, that's all. Just talking wrestling, or is she
Music. She's doing music.
Doing
and
music.
She sound like did not miss a beat
Right.
for just jumping into something she's never done before, and just
Right.
sounds like a professional DJ. It just
That's awesome.
From day
that
one.
really is, and she knows what she's doing. She's a great pro wrestler.
Yeah.
She really was. All right, like I was saying earlier, you have your hands in a lot of things, not just radio and music. You're also interested in psychology. Now, how did that come about?
So I was early in studying media psychology, and at the time, people thought I was absolutely insane because media psychology major, you're going to be broke, you're never going to get a job. What are you thinking? You know, take the safer major. And then it came out that major media outlets are using media psychology to sell to us and everybody, and they're using things like Flickr rate. They're tracking your eye to see the best place to put the ads. So all of a sudden, people kind of looked back and said, all right, you were an early adopter for media psychology because everybody's using it. And that's when you're seeing the different things that pop up when you just think about, you know, coffee mugs. Now all of a sudden in your feed, there's that coffee mug. If that's not freaking you out, and I'm no conspiracy theorist, but if that's not freaking you out, you're not paying attention.
Right. That is awesome. Really is. And also, real estate. Are you a real estate agent?
I am, yeah.
Nice. Smart. You got, like I said, you got your hands in a lot of things, man.
I was not blessed with the best attention span, so.
Well, you know, something that sounds to me like, though, you really got yourself going, you know, into the right things. I mean, like you said, your passion is wrestling and music and radio. That's incredible. All right, so you've been working in wrestling now. After you said you were trained and you took a break. When did you come back?
It's been about 2 years now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So wow, you took like 20-something years off.
I was out. I had a health issue. Knock on wood. Things are good there. And then the way it worked with music was that the music gigs were almost exactly at the same time that the wrestling gigs were.
Yeah.
And sometimes the same venues. Right. So I had to pick one or the other because there's only so many hours in the weekend, so many hours on Friday night. So once the band started getting busy, there just wasn't, unless I get a cloning machine, there wasn't a way to do both. So
wow, that's crazy. All right, so some of the companies you work for is Supernova, and you've done commentary for them. Is that all you've done? Like, have you managed anyone there?
Not yet. No, I'm part of the Shock team.
Okay.
Me and a guy who is fantastic named Bailey, who is a brand new commentator. It sounds fantastic.
Nice.
So we've been able to kind of loop in a more experienced commentator. Him and I working together, which is a fantastic opportunity for me because I can do more of an analyst role there, where usually I'm just doing regular play-by-play, you know, using my broadcasting background.
So you're the color guy?
I get to add in a lot more color than other situations.
Okay, excellent. And you're also the commissioner for AWL.
Yeah.
And how did that come about?
So that was my first stop in getting back involved because Maniac Mike also I've known for 30 some odd years. He has AWL and he runs AWL out of Showcase Pro in Woonsocket.
Oh, okay.
So being
Chris
down
Blackout.
there, right, yeah.
Nice.
So being down there, I was able to meet all the other guys coming through, people who have different gigs going on, people who have different shows coming up, different organizations. So once I started working with those guys, and truly, I started working just exclusively behind the scenes. So with the broadcasting, I have a production background, you know, so I know how to use all the stuff in here and all the stuff down there. And they needed someone to help with camera and audio and incidentals. And of course, I just could not control myself but to hop back in the ring.
Right. Well, it's amazing because a lot of companies need help like that.
Big time.
And I always say there's a couple of guys in wrestling, I'll name them here, that if they're at a show, they can manage, they can ring announce, they can do commentary, and that would be Chad Epic and Todd Graham. Two of the most, in my opinion, the most valuable guys that would just show up at a show. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All right. And now you're also a part of a wrestling school?
So
XUC.
So XUC, I do commentary for them. Unfortunately, I haven't been involved too much in the school. They're just getting it going, but they're running on Sundays, and Sunday is my one free day. And if I want to still live at home and not sleep on the couch, I should probably keep one free day for the family, you know. So I haven't been too involved with the school, but they're running out of a fantastic facility, some experienced trainers, and it's great to see a second option in Rhode Island. Blackhearts is the only school right now currently. Rhode Islanders are weird. They don't like to drive to different places. So there being a second option, now we just need a second option in like the South County towards Connecticut area. And Rhode Island will be covered. But yeah, those guys are kicking that off strong.
So who is the head trainer at
It is
XUC?
Dino, and I think they have a few other guys involved. Mr. X Jr. is involved.
Okay.
You know, he brings his father-in-law was the original Mr. X, so he brings in some other people that have been involved in wrestling in the past, and they had the TV show and different stuff. So my goal with that, eventually, if I'm more involved, would be on the broadcasting side to help younger wrestlers
Right.
with their mic skills and their training and their talking. And then that gives me an opportunity to jump in with a younger guy who is not a good talker or is too shy to
Yep.
talk. I'll do the talking, he can do the wrestling, and it's it's a match made in heaven.
Absolutely. And I've actually been thinking of hitting up wrestling schools and asking them if you guys want anybody that, could be interviewed or you think
Yeah.
would help them, please hit me up and let me know. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm totally willing to help anybody in New England independent wrestling. All right, well, why don't I throw a few names at you? So we'll start off with the Supernova group. Billy Avery. Do you know Billy?
I do. Yeah, fantastic wrestler, can move. Crowd loves him. It's great to see. The last few shows, the crowd has just loved everything he's had.
Nice. So he's a babyface.
Yeah, yep.
Okay, cool. This guy's been a guest here, and he's gonna be a guest again. The GOAT, Freaking Flax.
What can I say? Because I always respect something that I could not pull off. So
Right.
if I dressed as a goat, chances are I'd be in the county jail by the end of the weekend. The fact that it is such a classic, almost kaiju style gimmick that people love.
Yeah.
Again, the energy is always behind him at the shows.
Yeah, he's really entertaining. Real.
And another one that could, music hits, he is running.
Oh, yeah.
Running around the whole building.
Yeah.
I mean, I would be.
He moves a lot faster than real goats. He
True.
does.
Yeah, and smells better than real goats.
Well, yeah, I believe that. Next time I hug him, I'll take a whiff. All right, how about a guy that had got released from the WWE, and it sounded like it was kind of weird. Weird. Why? Because of something that he did to a female wrestler.
Yeah.
I think it was Ronda Rousey.
Yeah.
Drew Gulak, who's a hell of a talent and also a great wrestling trainer.
Nice guy. He was heavily involved in this past Supernova show.
Okay.
And he was there from before I was, and I got there for earlier to set up some equipment and
Right.
was there until the lights went down, did a meet and greet, met everybody that wanted to meet him, people that didn't pay for, which I guess I shouldn't say also, but
Right.
people that maybe couldn't afford the meet and greet.
Yeah.
He took time with them, took extra time with people that wanted to meet him, took pictures in the ring, which is a no-no for some federations,
Right.
but Supernova allows it. And yeah, he was just a pro's pro in my few times.
Nice. Have you ever heard of his brother Rory?
I don't think so. No.
Rory wrestled as, I don't know if you remember Mike Mondo.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of put face paint on and became not Mike Mondo, I'm sorry, Nick Mondo.
Mm-hmm.
And he kind of did what Nick did in the ring and
Oh,
all
nice.
that. And it was amazing. I don't think he wrestles anymore, but he was a pretty talented kid. All right, how about a guy that's also been here twice? Big Johnny Pierce.
So and maybe this is just because people are prejudiced against big people, but I was at a show last weekend doing my part to support Supernova Wrestling, so I had as many flyers as possible with me, passing them out. Johnny Pierce is on the flyer. And people kept asking me, is that you on the flyer? Now, to me, Johnny Pierce and I look nothing alike.
Right, no,
But
just big.
because
Just
we're
big.
both big,
Yeah.
that must be me on the flyer.
Right. That's hilarious. But Johnny's working really hard.
Yeah.
He's trained at a whole bunch of different places, and I can see some big things happening for Johnny.
He seems to be out there at different shows every weekend.
Exactly. All right. How about another guy that's been here at least once so far? Stevie Legend.
He is also, you're hitting on all the baby faces. He is.
Oh, he is. Okay,
he is
yeah.
very,
he seems like a baby
Yeah.
face, anyways.
Yeah, I think I worked with him at a different show in Connecticut too.
Okay.
And the crowd loved him there, and I think just people still love that kind of all-American, old school. I wouldn't necessarily call him old school, but that old school
Right.
vibe a little bit. People still love that to this day.
Absolutely. Stevie's a good kid, too. How about Damien Darko?
Damien Darko, I love.
He's a heel. That's got to be a heel.
He's a heel,
Okay.
and also, down in my heart, as serious as I get, I'm just an old school carny, and he has that old school clown, Carnival Barker. Maybe you'd see him at Coney Island.
Right.
Another guy I respect that can work a whole match in the face paint. I could never do that. I would not be
Yeah.
able to see. I'd be sweating all over the place. He's got the full white, white Joker paint
Yeah.
and different type stuff going on, and Yeah, he was another guy that as soon as he walked out of the curtain, people were booing him, which is
Right.
a good sign of a good
Yes.
heel. And I just love that old Carney vibe.
Nice. I've said this before. Like I went to an NEW show
Mm-hmm.
years ago, and a kid came up to me at intermission or after the show. How did I do? I said, dude, nobody knew what you were. You didn't. I said, you either come out with a mean look or you come out fiery.
Yeah.
That way, immediately everyone knows you're a babyface or a heel.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
All right. How about Clipper Jones?
Clipper Jones is good. He's, like I was talking about earlier, a big guy that can move,
Yeah.
which is not always easy, and it's not always easy to find. So it looks like I'm seeing huge potential with him. And I think he's working the next show. He's on the card. He's on the flyer for that one, and I think he's a long-termer for Supernova.
Excellent. How about Q the Pitbull?
Q the Pitbull, he is
I like the name.
the best referee in the business because people are afraid of him.
Then that's Q. That's who it is, right?
Yeah.
Because you guys call him in this. Is he called Q the Pitbull everywhere?
I'm not.
I don't think
I only
so.
know him as Q. I don't know. Is it
Right.
maybe he just became a full-bred pit bull? I don't
He
know.
looks like a mean dude, though.
Which
He does. I'm just saying, Q. Don't get mad.
you know, that's the tough thing. You know, when I do announce, it's tough because I'm bigger than
Right,
most of the
right, right.
wrestlers. But when you have a referee who looks like he could actually bounce at a club,
Yeah.
actually keep order in the match,
Right.
I think that's what makes Q the best.
That's a great point. It really is. All right. How about I like this guy a lot. Frank Bones, and we'll even mention his ex-tag team partner, or maybe he's still his tag team partner, Greedy.
Those guys, especially Frank Bones, I would consider to be wrestlers. So before I was even involved in Supernova, I would always hear from other guys about Frank Bones.
Yeah.
Behind the scenes, he works with some different equipment and ring setup, and he has another smaller company that he works with. But all the other wrestlers respect him not only as a wrestler and as a businessman. So that's always a good sign.
It's funny because I didn't meet him until I had him on the show. And then, obviously after you meet him, you become like kind of friends, So I'd seen him at another show. But you're right, though. He's got a lot of knowledge. Another guy that obviously if he needed to, he could do almost anything in wrestling. But I'm sure he's way more valuable being a wrestler.
And with the business side of it, I have to give the respect to someone who is going to be there early, set up the ring, run a match, take a beating.
Yeah.
Now, after you take a beating, you don't just get to go home. You're coordinating up your guys. You're breaking down the ring,
Yeah.
packing it up, hauling it back home. Chances
Right.
are unloading it again. I mean, talk about cardio.
Now, because you said he has his own ring.
Right.
So that's like you're saying, that's why he has
Yeah,
to
yeah.
do it all at the end. Absolutely. All right, how about Brother Bedlam?
Brother Bedlam.
Who I've never actually heard of. Like, I'm looking forward.
He seems, I believe, fairly new. I had worked with him in Connecticut too. Just almost another old school Carney look as far as
Okay.
the beard, the long hair. But yeah, he is that wrestler that you in real life don't want to meet in a dark alley. Maybe
Right.
you'd go on the other side of the street if you saw him coming. So
Yeah.
that's always a positive.
That sounds like patient 5150, who I talked about last week with my guests, Lou Jacobs
Mm-hmm.
and Cindy Hott. I've seen pictures of the guy, and he literally looks so scary. And I mean, I know what wrestling's all
Right,
about,
yeah.
but he looks amazing. He's got he has a mask where like the top of his head's
Yeah.
like his brain.
Yeah, yeah.
It's crazy. All right, how about Sean Knight?
Sean Knight is also on the next, I believe he's on the next few Supernova shows. And another one where the crowd's behind him. He seems to bring a little bit of a crowd too, where
Nice.
with some of the shows as you're moving around, people are they might be seeing those independent wrestlers for the first time.
Yeah.
They're still gauging, is this a good guy? Is this a bad guy? Do I like this guy? Do I hate this guy's guts?
Right.
So anytime someone is bringing their own crowd with
Yeah.
them, that's a good sign.
Yeah, Sean Knight sells tickets.
Yeah.
There you go. All right, how about, I hope I don't butcher the, Kanan MK? Is it Caden? Kynan? No?
I'm drawing a blank on
Okay,
him.
that's
Yeah.
fine. Guy's got the same name as me, Leo Sparrow, who I know is really good.
Yeah. Yeah, he's good. He is a little bit on the petite side.
Yep,
He would
yep,
be,
yep.
a high flyer, a mover, And another pro, the last show, he has a very specific entrance he does related to his entrance music.
Okay.
And the last show, his music was messed up on the production side.
Yeah, yeah.
And he didn't lose his cool. He was a
Nice.
pro about it. He just kept moving along.
Yep.
And some people, it only takes that one little thing for them to be upset or
Right.
the rest of their day's ruined or they're dogging the company online because
Yeah.
the music was messed up. And yeah, he was a pro. He kept moving.
And I said, if I'm not mistaken, he's from WrestlePro.
Okay.
Who has put out guys like MJF and Bear Bronson and plenty other guys. I'm sorry, I'm not going to name them all. But how about I like this guy a lot, Barnaby Combs.
Another one that kind of has that old school,
Yep.
You kind of would see him at a farmer's market or at a flea market or one of those guys where you'd run into and you would definitely think that this guy would, even if you don't like wrestling, you'd think this guy looks like a wrestler, which I
Right.
always think is a good thing too.
He's got a lot of heat with my friend Joey Kilmartin. That's all I'll say. Sorry, Joey, but I had to say it. How about great last name, Dante Dio.
Dante Dio is hugely popular. He's another one too, where in a few Supernova shows I'm trying to think, all the shows have been in different locations.
Right.
And he is another one where he has brought a crowd to
Nice.
those locations and between Massachusetts and Vermont and
Yeah.
different parts of Massachusetts. He's bringing a crowd with him, people to follow him, not specifically to follow Supernova. So that's a
Right.
good sign.
Excellent. All right. The next two guys I'm going to name are a tag team, but I'm going to name them one at a time. Kylon King.
I'm a huge fan of tag team wrestling.
Me too.
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah.
I would much rather watch a tag team match than a singles match.
Yeah. And those guys, they're well oiled. They move together. They're another one where it looks like a tag team. It's
Right.
gelled like a tag team. It's not just like they just stuck two guys together and you guys are working tag tonight. They are a tag team.
Right. And I love to see that they're getting booked all over the
Yeah.
place. Not even just New England, not even just the tri-states, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania. They've gone almost everywhere.
Yeah.
Incredible. And his tag team partner, Flash Waller.
Yeah, those guys, like I said, moved together, almost could, look like they were related, like the old school tag teams.
Right.
They could look like they were
They're
brothers.
kind of different, though. They
Yeah,
don't,
but
They wrestle the same.
They're moving together. They're
Right.
they're a gel, what they would call a well-oiled tag team.
Right. Guys, the only reason why I said that, if you're not familiar with them, Kylon King is African American and Flash Waller isn't. All right. So why don't we move on to Absolute Wrestling League? How about Kylie Pierce?
Kylie Pierce, it's just fantastic to see such a strong women's division.
Right.
And I'm a big fan of Ring of Honor, and they're doing a lot with their women's division now, and
Right.
it seems like that's just going to continue to move along. And another person that can move in the ring, and the audience right away is either behind or
Right.
against. There's no wishy-washy 50-50.
You know what's great about wrestling, though, now? Not only is that, like you had said, Absolute Wrestling League, favoring the females too, every company's
Yeah.
I mean, you look at the match that Tony Storm had against Mariah May.
Yeah.
The bloodbath.
Yeah.
In my opinion, should have finished the show. But I'm sure Tony
Yeah.
Khan was like, I don't know if this is the main event. But it definitely should have been, And then on top of that, you even look at the WrestleMania match that just Io Sky. Io Sky. Who the heck did she wrestle?
I know I saw
Rhea Ripley
Yeah.
and Bianca Belair.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you saw the finish, but the finish was incredible. And Io Sky retained the title.
Yeah, I thought they were going to move that around too. And then on the
Yeah.
first night too, I mean, I loved the Charlotte Flair match. I thought that
Right.
was a pick of that night too.
Yep.
So.
All right, we might get into the
Yeah,
WrestleMania
because,
thing.
As I said earlier, I don't have the greatest attention span.
Right.
So I was in and out on WrestleMania, especially as much as I love wrestling, 2 nights,
Yeah.
it's just even too much for me. So.
Oh, yeah. I had to go to sleep because I've been working 13 hours, 12 to 13-hour days. So, all right. This guy is from, I first saw him for Combat Zone Wrestling. He's a very big guy. I think he's lost weight, actually, whatever. Greg Excellent.
He can move for his size.
Yeah, he
Another
can.
guy who hits the ropes and if you're there live, you hear him hit the ropes. You hear him when he hit the mat. It reverberates throughout the whole building, which is kind of the genius of going to an independent show. Is you are that close. You know, you're hearing that body hit the plywood, smack, and when you get a bigger guy like that, it echoes, you know, smaller towns, it echoes throughout the whole town.
Right. I mean, Greg must be at least 6'2", 6'3", maybe taller. But he had a feud with, I don't know if you know who Chrissy Rivera is, but Chrissy's like 4'11". And it just, Greg was such a good worker. Not that she isn't. It was incredible.
Nice.
The matches were unbelievable. All right, how about a guy that got called out during the Me Too?
Yeah.
Really, really talented pro wrestler, David Starr.
It's tough to see people get quote unquote canceled. But back out there, seems to be getting a decent amount of bookings, so maybe that's all in the past now. And bigger bookings too. So.
Right. Well, I know he's been doing like weightlifting or bodybuilding, something like that. But like I said, very talented, but was called out by multiple women. Back to the women's of AWL, Brittany Force.
A force. As cheesy as that sounds.
Yeah.
Probably one of the top women, and another one that is just going all over outside of the comfort zone of the regular shows, you know, that she does. So it's interesting to see when people start moving to that level, and they're working Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and they're working Friday, Saturday, and Sunday for a different company in a different town. You know, they're driving that whole week too. So yeah, moving right along.
All right, well, the next name has wrestled for the WWE, and I think he might even be part of AEW now. But an incredible wrestler, Tony Nese.
Tony Nese is a guy that can move too, and in that, you know, under 200 pound, I think sometimes that gets a little bit mixed in where people, when they see it up close, they love it, and when they see it on TV, something gets lost in the translation. So if you can see a guy like that in that first, second row, seeing just how fast he's moving around, bouncing off those ropes, and you can feel the wind going by. Anytime you can see guys like that up close, you got to take the opportunity.
I've probably seen 25 Tony Nese matches over the years, and not one of them was not good. You know? How about okay, this woman, I don't know if it's true or not, but she, to her husband, she accused Kimberly.
Kimberly, I like and have seen wrestling for, it feels like ages now. It feels like she has been out on the independents for ages and ages. And surprise hasn't broken a little bit more. I mean, is upper echelon, but I'm surprised hasn't broken through just because she does have such a solid character and a solid way of working, but maybe it's the personal problems. You know,
I guarantee it's got to be the personal problems. People don't want to book her, I guess. I don't know, because she can wrestle.
Which is tough.
Honestly, she really is a good wrestler.
Which is tough because even if it's true or not, and leaning on the fact that it's not true, but if that sullied people from wanting to book you or book her or book anybody, even if it's completely unfounded or untrue, now it is such a small group that those politics do come into play still. You'd think we'd be past that by now, but it still comes into play.
Absolutely. Great answer. Got a couple guys from CZW. Ruckus, who is so athletic for, I don't know what shape he's in now, but he was always chubby when I first saw him. But amazing wrestler.
Still moving. Yeah, still, you know, probably has lost a little bit weight from back in the day, but definitely would not what you consider to be svelte or right. Again, for the size and for that fitness level, or the way it looks on camera, can completely move.
Right, and I'm sure those guys are friends with the late great Tyrann Acid, who I became friends with from my catering days, and who would have been a huge star if the tragedy didn't happen. How about Black Cheese, who's a smaller guy, especially compared to you, but can really work.
Yeah. And seems to be able to have a good match with just about anybody. So
absolutely.
Sometimes regionally, you will see the same folks wrestling weekend after weekend, or the same guys, but in a different league. But usually any person that he's up against, it's not the same person every weekend, and it's always a good match.
Right. And for a while, I don't even know if CZW is still going.
I don't think so. I haven't heard the name in a while, but
Well, the last owner was a guy that people give him crap, but I always thought he could work. TJ Hyde. DJ Hyde. I think it sounded like T, but DJ Hyde.
yeah, also can work, and also could work a variety of different styles as far as, especially with CZW at one point, they were just known for Crimson Masks and hardcore, and he was a guy that could kind of do a little bit of everything.
Absolutely. I think he got a bad stigma, How about a guy that actually worked for the WWE over a decade ago? Mike Mondo.
Mike Mondo is another person that's also at a lot of different cons, which is cool to see, because anybody that has made it to that level at one point, chances are there's someone that wants to shake your hand, or they're willing to buy a t-shirt, or they're wanting to reminisce about, I saw you do this back in the day. So it's great to see him still active, but also active as far as interfacing with the fans.
Nice. And he does, I guess he's been traded guys too.
Okay.
So lately. All right, how about this guy, I first saw him in MCW, Maryland Championship Wrestling, Ryan McBride.
Ryan McBride, I always enjoy. I was just watching some YouTube stuff because he's kind of doing a little bit of his own thing too. And I guess everybody is nowadays putting out his own content. And always just an enjoyable match, and another person that seems to be all over the place as far as travel goes.
Yes, and can work any style too. He really. How about his brother passed away many years ago, Russ, Charlie Haas.
Charlie Haas, another one, always interfacing with in the times that I've seen, always interfacing with the fans and taking as much time as possible for folks that want to meet him, folks that want to talk about, I saw you do this back in the day. And sometimes those guys just want to forget that portion of their life. Like they are so over it, but they're able to put themselves in that headspace of the fan of, this is a big moment for this person to shake my hand, and I'm going to pay as much respect as possible to that. And Drew Gulak was like that at the last time I saw him.
Nice. And it's funny because we're both tag team guys. His tag team was Shelton Benjamin as the world's greatest tag team. At the time, might have been the world's greatest tag team.
Yeah.
All right, how about a guy that's part of the Wyatt Six, Joe Gacy.
That's another one I like. I'm a sucker for that Carney type stuff. And anytime you're throwing a serial killer name in the mix, you got to love that kind of dark. And again, that's one of those things where you think that it would have run its course by now. But people still love that stuff.
Yeah. Seeing how I'm a huge independent wrestling fan, I remember trying to ask him, anybody young coming? And he said Joe Gacy. He literally said Joe Gacy.
Nice.
How about Rich Swann, who I'm a huge fan of.
Another guy that can move, if you're up close, you see him bounce off those ropes, you're thinking, is that guy going 25 miles an hour across this ring? And another one with the speed of, you don't know how he is in the middle of the ring and somehow up on that top turnbuckle. Like it seems like at the same time.
Yeah. He's so fast. So fast. And now this guy left the WWE, NXT in particular, because Vince McMahon wanted to make him a manager. And I really don't think he's reached that level that he was in NXT in AEW. Adam Cole.
And it's
talented, don't get me wrong.
Talented and can talk, which is kind of a shame as far as not riding it out a little bit of at least trying to see if a manager thing was for him.
Right.
Because he can get on the microphone, he can talk about just about anything. He can do analysis, he can do play-by-play, he can jump on the mic and just start talking. And that I think that some of us that are good at that don't realize how much of a difficult that skill is for someone who is afraid of public speaking.
Right.
The old statistic is that more people are afraid of public speaking than are of dying. So they're more scared to talk at the funeral than actually be at the funeral. And I think sometimes when guys can naturally talk, they don't necessarily understand how much of a gift that is.
Nice, great answer. I have a feeling, though, that since he left NXT, which was at the Performance Center, where you're going to work out every time you go there, to AEW, where they don't have a Performance Center, and people are complaining that he's too small, myself included, but he still is a great wrestler. There's no doubt. And the personality he has, and he probably would have killed it as a manager if he decided to go that way.
If that's how the spirit led.
Right.
But yeah, I didn't think of the difference of being at a performance center of you are slotted these times to work out,
Right.
as opposed to being on the road, driving back and forth. Chances are you're stopping at a fast food joint, whether
Right.
you want to or not, or maybe you're partaking in some extracurriculars because you have some more
like that
downtime.
stuff.
And as opposed to it being regimented of this is workout time
Right.
and broken down to this is cardio time, this is weights time. I mean, that takes a ton of discipline.
Oh, absolutely. Well, the last name I have for the AWL is one of my favorite independent wrestlers, not just an independent wrestler, but he works for the WWE, Steve Corino, who the guy can do no wrong, in my opinion.
And has done a ton of behind the scenes.
Yeah.
I think another one of the guys that jumps in, he's a line producer sometimes, and he's a matchmaker, and he's working with younger guys, and he's working with broadcasts. So anytime someone can make themselves invaluable like
Right.
that, people are lining up to book you.
Have you ever met George Carroll by chance, who actually works for WWE NXT? And he owned NEW after Rocky De La Sara.
No, he must have came in later when I had already moved on
Right.
to working on some other things, but I know the name has a lot of respect in Rhode Island.
Oh, absolutely. George, he's worked his butt off to get where he is. He really has a hard-working guy. Well, we got about 12 minutes left.
Wow.
Why don't we talk about this past weekend's WrestleMania? I mean, I enjoyed both shows. A lot of people said they liked night number 2 better, but I actually liked night number 1 better. And the show opened up with Jey Uso beating Gunther for the World Heavyweight Championship.
And that's another one, like we're just talking about, you'd think that some of that would have expired or people wouldn't be into it as much as Gunther, and it is a very World War II-esque type thing, you know? And you think all these years later, maybe kids don't even realize that it's a World War II-esque type thing, but he is just like the heel's heel when it comes to the crowd, but also, I mean, those guys just worked each other over during that match.
I thought that was a great match.
It was one of the ones, like I said, I don't have the greatest attention span, and I was able to watch the whole match. So that's, that's a good sign.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad Jay won. A lot of people just so tall. I keep hitting you. But I thought it was a good match. I was very surprised that Gunther tapped out so quick.
Yeah, that was another situation where it seemed like it was a little weird as far as just even using a submission. But
I mean, the fans might look at it, wow, he taps quick. The next time he's in, they're going to expect him to tap again. All right, the second match was the War Raiders defending their tag team titles versus the New Day, where they had 2 local guys in the match, Kofi Kingston of the New Day and Ivar of the War Raiders. I'll always call him Handsome Johnny. What'd you think about that match?
I like the bad guy New Day as much as I hate to say that, again, it's kind of one of those things that maybe could have run its course by now, but man, when you heard the boos in the audience from when they were doing their different promos and people, even just the look of moving things around and changing their merchandise and all that, I think that they're going to make some great heels. And again, I love to see tag teams.
And I thought that the heel turn on Big E was incredible. Because now he could come back either as a wrestler, maybe, or he can come back with another team, maybe the War Raiders. But I told you earlier that Ivar is the guy that I'm most happy for that made it to the WWE. Kofi Kingston made it in like 2 years. And it took Handsome Johnny a long time, but he never gave up. It's amazing. All right, how about next was a match that really surprised me. How good it was. Jade Cargill, who was so green still, beat Naomi, who I'm really not a fan of, but I thought Naomi was unbelievable in this match.
I thought they kept it moving. That was one of the ones where I was kind of in and out and had a few different things to do. But I really didn't think about the fact that Jade Cargill is so green and even appeared to maybe be a little bit nervous. And but from what I saw, it was a pretty solid match. So
I saw a video today. I don't know if you've heard that she supposedly had problems with Shayna Baszler. Well, Shayna Baszler had her in like a sleeper or the coquina clutch like Joe does. And literally, she was tapping out immediately, So I guess they've had big issues in the locker room.
Wow.
So it's crazy. All right. So the next match was the Samoan Werewolf, Jacob Fatu, beating LA Knight.
LA Knight's one of those guys where I feel like I've been watching him forever,
Yeah.
too, because I was a TNA fan,
Right.
you know, when they were
Yep.
on a little bit more accessible as far as being on over-the-air cable and stuff like that. And it is great to see him kind of at that point when compared to other wrestlers a little bit later in life.
Right.
And I didn't catch that whole match. I've always liked Jacob Fatu also.
Me
He
too.
was out on the independents for ages and ages.
Yeah.
So it's funny to see what a casual fan might think as two new guys
Right.
at WrestleMania who have been out in other leagues and on independents for it seems like forever.
Yeah, and LA Knight really has got so much charisma, and I thought it was so funny when people were giving him crap. Oh, you like Steve Austin, you like The Rock. What's up? I mean, you want to be successful. Those are two guys you should copy.
Yeah.
I really mean that. All right, this match, I was really surprised that he lost. El Grande Americano beat Ray FedEx, who was probably in his 10th match, if that, in the WWE.
Yeah, but it was action packed. That's another
It
one
was.
where they kept moving. I mean, there was no downtime in that. There was no rest.
Yep.
I was getting winded just looking at it. So that's always a good sign when it comes to that style of wrestling.
Nice. And I was, like I said, I was only surprised that they had Ray losing because I thought the match was incredible
Yeah.
because Chad Gable is incredible. All right. Right after that was my favorite match on the show. Tiffany Stratton beating Charlotte Flair.
Same. Yeah, I was glued to that whole matchup.
Oh, yeah.
Not was I was expecting for an ending. I thought that we were going to see the Charlotte Flair dynasty kind of keep going and going and going until the end of time. But that was definitely, I was surprised by the finish on that one, which doesn't happen often.
Me too. And I wondered, though, was that promo on SmackDown really scripted or was that, a work?
No, that might have been off script. Yeah.
So it's crazy. All right. In the main event on Saturday night, we had Seth Rollins beating Roman Reigns and CM Punk with 2 turns.
Yeah.
What'd you think?
I love me some Paul Heyman
Me too.
because, someone who does a little bit of managing here and there. I think he's another one, like we're talking about, some wrestlers are wrestlers. He's a manager's manager when you
Right.
think of what he's able to pull off with all different guys, with his facial expressions, with the fact that people are still surprised.
Right.
And not just because WrestleMania, you have your casual fans, they've never seen these guys before, who's this heavy-set guy in there. They don't even know who he is. They don't even know about ECW. They
Right.
don't know what ECW is. They don't know any of that history. They're seeing this for the first time, and he's able to keep that moving for the more experienced fans and the people that are only watching WrestleMania, which is a huge asset.
And I loved the turn. Like he, looked at Roman and slid the back chair to
Yeah.
Punk, and Punk was so happy, and Roman was like, "Whoa." Just turning on him and then turning on Roman. I love the part where after he turned on CM Punk, he kind of went on his knee
Yeah.
to hand the. That was unbelievable.
And
I
listen,
loved it.
There's nothing that connects more with people at home, especially males, seeing somebody get punched in the nuts because
Yeah.
we can all,
Yeah.
unlike other moves, it's
Yep.
hard to picture what a suplex feels like. It's hard to picture what a Hurricane Rana feels like. But we've all taken a hit to the nether regions and not enjoyed it.
Absolutely.
Any guy out there.
All right, we got 5 minutes to finish the Sunday. Night 2 of WrestleMania. Io Sky beat Bianca Belair and Rhea Ripley. What'd you think?
What a match.
It was
What a match. I was surprised by the ending.
Me too. I could have sworn just before Io hit, I thought there was a 3
Yeah.
count. I really did.
Yeah.
And Io, it was nice to see Io get the win, though, because she really is very talented, All right. Drew McIntyre versus Damian Priest. No lie, this was the least match I wanted to watch, but I thought it was pretty good, though.
Yeah, no, there was some spots in there where, it made me cringe a little bit thinking, how is that going to work out for either guy?
Right.
All that work with the stairs, I mean, they're so odd to pick up and move. You never know what's going to happen when you're in that situation. And then throwing all that stuff in the ring was a little bit too much as far as a match that early in the night went.
Right.
But I like Damian Priest, and I thought it was an enjoyable match. You know, I think for a certain wrestling fan, that was probably their match of the night because they are into the ECW vibe type feel. But
I was just happy to really enjoy it. Like I said, it was like the least match that I was looking forward to, and I thought it was pretty damn good. All right, Dominic Mysterio won the IC title by beating Braun Breaker, Finn Balor, and Penta.
Interesting, because I'm a IC title fan. You know, I think that they could do a lot with that belt, and then especially with the house shows, it's kind of one of those belts where you could take it around, make it a little bit more accessible. People can see it up close. They can see those guys up close. But yeah, that one threw me too. I thought it was going to be second generation Steiner and having that strap.
Me too. I didn't think they were going to take him off that quick, but I guess he may not need a belt though. Randy Orton beat a surprise opponent, Joe Hendry of TNA, the TNA heavyweight champion.
It's cool to see because there's been rumors forever and ever that TNA is going to be more involved.
Right.
We're going to see him at bigger shows, not just on NXT stuff. And that is a guy who has popularized TNA to people that are more than just casual fans, where they know his name, they know what TNA is because of him. So that was cool to see.
I'm looking forward to Alicia and Eddie Edwards making a WWE appearance. All right, Logan Paul beat AJ Styles.
AJ Styles is another one of those people where I feel like I've been watching him forever. And he's another one. He came up in a zillion different leagues, had a zillion different weird haircuts over the years, too. That was interesting to see, but for somebody who's so experienced, AJ Styles can still move. He seems like he's still keeping up with that level of competition. So
absolutely, and he's in such great shape and all that.
Yeah.
Lyra Valkyria, whatever, and the surprise tag team partner, Becky Lynch, beat Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez for that tag team belts.
Which was interesting because it didn't last long.
No, exactly. The next night.
24 hours later, the belts were off of them, which seemed a little weird.
Right.
But, I mean, I had my TV at full blast at that point. I was in and out, and as soon as Becky Lynch came out, it was, I think the whole neighborhood heard my TV. So it seemed like it was a surprise for a lot of different fans, not just casual fans.
And I was shocked when she turned on Lyra last night. No, 2 nights ago.
Yeah.
2 nights ago. That was crazy. And I don't know if you noticed, but last night on NXT, Liv and Raquel defended the titles versus Gigi Dolan and Tatum Paxley.
Right. Because they had been kind of working a thing where they were in the front row at a couple different matches, and that's another one where they can move that belt around, make it more accessible to folks that can't afford WrestleMania tickets.
Right. And it's nice to see that, like, you know what I mean? Like, just the bigger, like the main rosters coming down to NXT. All right. Winning his 17th championship, John Cena beat Cody Rhodes. John Cena the heel, Cody the babyface, but the fans went,
Yeah, that's a situation where no matter what you do, no matter what you set up, the fans are going to be the fans.
Yeah, dude, it was unbelievable. And I think it's time, I guess, for Cody to probably turn heel.
Yeah.
You know? And maybe, how about like the Austin Bret Hart? How about the double turn in the match? I think that would really work.
And there's so much that you could do with him as a heel related to his past time in WWE and in NXT and how it didn't go so hot. So if you do want to kind of break that fourth wall and break the veil, there's a lot to talk about there.
Yeah, and it was disappointing because I'm a huge Goldust fan. That Stardust didn't work out for him, but it didn't. But look at him now. He came back to the WWE as a star.
And his family's there and the whole thing. And you know, they moved around. They're doing business. So, yeah, it's cool to see.
Do you have anything you want to plug?
TonyJonesOnAir.com is my website if you want to see what I'm up to. Supernova has shows coming up, and I'm going to have some bookings later on down the summer. Providence Collector Con's coming up. I'll be hanging out there. So it's going to be, it seems like a busy summer.
Nice. So they can go to Tony Jones on Facebook.
Yeah. Yep.
All right.
Yep.
Guys, we're out. Peace. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
It.
Hi, guys. I hope you're enjoying the show. Listen, I could use a little help to grow my YouTube channel. So if you could please like, share, and subscribe. That's most importantly, subscribe. Send me a direct message, and I'll give you a shout out here on the show. My YouTube channel is real simple. It's just my name, Leo Connors. Thanks in advance. Peace.